actually money. They are debt instruments. Now this percentage, the 54%, is a 25-year low, by the way. Now in addition to dollar-denominated assets, foreign central banks are holding assets enumerated in a variety of other currencies. In 2022, 20% of all official reserves were denominated in euros, 6% were in Japanese yen, 5% were in British pounds, and 3% were in the Chinese renminbi. The small percentage of the total is still a large quantity of money. There's still $6.6 trillion, $6.6 trillion US dollar enumerated assets that are held on reserve in foreign banks, foreign central banks. The Federal Reserve estimates that there are at least $2.3 trillion in outstanding federal banknotes held by someone outside our banking system somewhere. Now these are real dollars, real units of the minimum exchange. Now it also estimates that over $1 trillion of these banknotes are held by foreigners. So they estimate that at least $1 trillion of the US money supply is held overseas by foreigners. That's roughly half of the total US banknotes outstanding. Now, to put that in perspective, the M1 money supply measured for last month was 18.6 trillion. So about 6% of M1, and we should say at least 6% of M1 was held in the form of US currency by foreigners. The Fed itself says this is probably a low estimate, so it's probably more than that, but it's all somewhat guesswork. Now suppose for the sake of argument that the dollar, though through a general loss of confidence in its soundness, or a loss in the US economic, a loss of confidence in the US economic or political systems, or both, loses its accepted status as global currency. What then? Now, if that happens, it is unlikely that the dollar loses its reserve status abroad. It would do so overnight. And even if it does, it is unlikely that all of those dollars held overseas will come back to the United States right away. What if they did? Suppose foreign central banks and commercial banks no longer have any use for holding dollars and dollar-denominated debt instruments as reserve assets. On the one hand, foreign central banks might begin to disgorge themselves of U.S. Treasury securities. This would increase the supply of U.S. Treasury bonds, lowering their price and increasing interest rates. At the same time, large quantities of dollars would find their way back to the United States, ending up in either cash balances or commercial bank reserves. Now, over the past 2 years, the money multiplier has been running on average about 5.8 over the past 2 years. That means that due to the fractional reserve banking system that we have, for every dollar in commercial bank reserves, $5.8 were created through credit expansion held by the non-bank public. So if $1.1 trillion would come back to the United States and end up in commercial bank reserves, and then be multiplied via credit expansion in a fractional reserve system with the money multiplier 5.8, there would be over $6 trillion of new money created and held outstanding. Now that would increase the money supply by about a third. And not only would that undo all the work to lower the official rate of price inflation to the still criminal 2%, it would be, as Yogi Berra put it, deja vu all over again. It might make even the last 2 years look like the golden age of price stability. It's hard to imagine, but the Fed is great at doing what's hard to imagine. Now I suspect not even Janet Yellen prefers hyperinflation. So what might the Fed do to mitigate such a disastrous outcome? On the one hand, if such a transition would occur somewhat gradually, the Fed might be inclined just to let it ride. It's already shown itself to be biased toward inflation rather than unemployment. If they fear that they can only mitigate the inflation by measures that may lead to recession and unemployment, they might be willing to live with significant price inflation. Setting aside the question of whether we should have a central bank, the short answer to that is no. It is telling that despite the legal mandate to promote stable prices, which we've already learned is not really a goal, but the law says that's what the Fed should be promoting. The Fed explicitly targets a 2% rate of annual price increase. And so, in the name of price stability, they mandate ever-increasing prices at a rate of 2%. And the Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines stable as, quote, not changing or fluctuation, end quote. Now, it seems to me then that stable prices would be prices that are increasing 2% a year. But of course, that would be too un-Orwellian for the lords of easy money. So the Fed might be willing to allow for significant price inflation for a bit. There are a number of options for the Fed that the Fed has to attempt to mitigate wild monetary inflation. Officials of the Fed could exchange in good old-fashioned jawboning. If they could lobby their friends at various foreign central banks to hold on to dollars anyway in order to allow for an orderly retreat from reserve currency status. This would slow the rate of increase in the dollars in the United States and would slow the sale of U.S. Treasury bonds by foreign central banks. Another thing the Fed could do is raise the interest rates on commercial bank reserves on deposits at the Fed. In October 2008, the Fed began paying interest to commercial banks on reserves deposited at the Fed, and this was in response to the quantitative easing and infusion of reserves into commercial banks in an effort to stabilize the banking system. The higher the rate of interest the Fed pays on reserves, the less incentive commercial banks have to lend out every last dollar of their reserves. That mitigates to a certain extent the commercial banks' eagerness to inflate money supply via credit expansion. The Fed could make open market sales. It could sell a significant amount of Treasury securities and mortgage-backed securities. Now, the Fed only holds $7.4 trillion in securities, so soaking up all the potential dollars from abroad would require open market sales to continue at a rate it signaling does not really want to continue. This would have a large impact on interest rates. Open market sales would continue to increase the supply of debt, securities, the global funds market, prices of Treasury bonds and mortgage-backed securities would fall, and interest rates would rise more. Now, the Fed could also think outside the box. They could, for example, reinstate large legal reserve requirements. Legal reserve requirements would have the impact similar to raising interest rates on reserves held at the Fed. Reinstating legal reserve requirements at a relatively high level would legally bind commercial banks to hold more money in their reserve accounts, thereby making it more difficult to engage in wild credit expansion in the form of newly created money. Finally, it seems to me that the Fed could do what modern monetary theorists said can be done if price inflation rears its head, which it has. You may remember that modern monetary theorists, such as Stephanie Kelton, assert that money is a creation of the state, and the government creates demand for it by requiring it in payments for taxes. So if they just require dollars, automatically creates a demand for dollars, and so what we create a demand for, the Fed can supply. They further argue, and this is a big insight, that the government cannot become insolvent because it can always print money to pay its debt and finance new spending. They further take a page out of Keynes' playbook by seeing unemployment as due to insufficient government spending. So the main policy conclusion is that the government can and should monetize deficit spending. As an aside, this is not exactly a new insight. All Austrian economists that I know of agree that the Fed can monetize it. This increased deficit spending will supposedly increase net saving and increase output and employment. But what are the consequences of monetary inflation? What if it results in high price inflation? No problem, they say. The government can fix it by increasing taxes to reduce spending. That is, indeed, something the Fed could encourage to soak up dollars to come back to the United States. They could lobby the U.S. Congress to raise taxes with the understanding that the U.S. Treasury will hold the revenue in their accounts at the Fed. This would effectively increase the demand to hold dollars for the purpose of offsetting the increased supply of dollars in the United States. As dollars make their way to our shores. If the demand to hold money offsets the increased supply, there would be more dollars in the United States, but it would not necessarily generate increased spending, because a larger quantity of dollars would be held rather than spent. The increased quantity of money in the United States would not therefore result in increased demand for consumer goods. It would not consequently result in higher overall prices and a lower purchasing power of money. Now, what may be more likely is that the Fed would try something we can't even imagine. Fed committees have demonstrated a history of policy entrepreneurship. Think of the plethora of changes that the Fed has instituted in the banking system since 2008. As already noted, in 2008 it began paying interest on commercial bank reserves balances at the Fed. During the financial crisis of 2008, the Fed created a plethora of lending facilities. There was the money market investor funding facility, the asset-backed commercial paper money market mutual fund liquidity facility, the commercial paper funding facility, the primary debt credit facility, the term securities lending facility, the term option facility, and the term asset-backed securities loan facility. All of these were allowed to expire by June of 2010, but the precedent is there and it has been set. A case in point was that the maturity extension program and reinvestment policy, which the Fed later created, and which was operated from September 2011 through 2012. In 2020, the Fed created another profusion of such contemporary facilities. There was the commercial paper funding facility, the primary dealer credit facility, the money market mutual fund liquidity facility, the primary market corporate credit facility, the second market corporate credit facility, the term asset-backed securities loan facility, the paycheck protection program liquidity facility, the municipal liquidity facility, and the Main Street lending program. Now, it's interesting to note that, as Dr. Newman noted earlier today, one of the great justifications for cryptocurrencies to protect us all from money laundering, protect us all from crime. Well, these facilities, essentially, a good number of the facilities were facilities that set up what we would call a shell corporation, so that the Fed could funnel money into them, but just as a pass-through direct to corporations, direct to companies that they wanted to provide some assistance to. So if we do it, if it's not us, it's you, if we do it, we would be guilty of money laundering. If they do it, it's monetary policy for the country. Now, all of those things I just mentioned were allowed to expire in April 2021. However, some of the Fed programs begun in March 2020 are still with us. They started the central bank liquidity swaps, the Foreign International Monetary Authority repo facility, and the standing repurchase agreement facility, all designed to make it easier for foreign and domestic central banks to inflate as if there were no consequences. All of these programs have the effect of removing market discipline from the actions of bankers. So I would not be surprised if the Fed tries something even more daring in terms of interventions and monetary manipulations if we do come to the end of the international dollar era. Whatever the Fed does do, we can expect is to give more control of the financial system and economy in general over to banking elites. They will further work to socialize our monetary system with all its inflationary consequences, perhaps even hastening the demise of the very dollar we will try to prop up. Such is the nature of central bank entrepreneurship. One might say that the Fed is the true creative destroyer. After all, economic law is mightier than any number of central bankers. Thank you. And before you go, we have some announcements.
I want you to know, not wash my hands. So I'm speaking as one of Lou's oldest family members. I broke bread with Lou, with Murray, I can't remember how many other guys. I did all that, went to the classes, I didn't learn a damn thing. But I had the honor of giving a book award. They call it the Coulter Award. I think that's in honor of the Coulter family and my father George, who was a great writer, and of course my mentor and friend of all these guys. So we've given out some really significant award to people. Patrick Newman, who wrote Conceived in Liberty, Hunter Lewis, Economics in 3 Lessons, Ron Paul, one of my favorite, Ron Paul, Swords and the Plowshares. How many people have read Ron Paul's book? Well, good, yeah, great. And then Tom DiLorenzo, Organized Crime, Tom Woods, Meltdown, and another one of my favorites, Dredge Napolitano, A Nation of Sheep. So it's with great pleasure that I tell you all that Sean Rittenauer is the next recipient. Let me tell you, when I got a call, they said, well, do you give a book award? And it said, some guy, Sean Rittenauer. And I said, well, I'm really busy, I don't know. And nobody can say anything new about economics because it's already been written, it's already been said. What could possibly be done? So I said, well, can I buy the book? No, but you can download it. So I read it. And I have to tell you, you wrote beautifully. It's new stuff. I said, my God, I thought it all had been written. No, there's more there. So get his book. And I think every student in America ought to read your book. Right? So here.
når jeg forlater alt min gårsdager. Forvente til jeg kommer. Et nyt nederlag. Hvert år som jeg falder. Og vinder ting som er. Lidt stille de spørgsmål. Aldrig give mig svar. Når dagen er kort, når det ikke er vår, i sekunderne vandrer din helt lange sommer.
9 Triple D, drop by.
What? Why, you worried?
No. My radio's gonna be talking.
Yep.
Everybody with the radio sound like weird voice.
But there's no work, they're gonna pull out of there. Oh, of course.
And 9 Triple D, the box.
Louder.
Park right here, I think.
Just past the entrance. I don't know if it's a public park or a private country club.
Right now we're actually pointing to it.
And 9 Triple D, the box. And 9 Triple D, the box.
Good ground, get ready.
We'll be switching over to
We're gonna park over there. say things like that. Slamming itself. Say, I'm sorry for slamming the door, not blaming the door for slamming itself. You understand me?